Hi, today's class is going to be a 30-minute practice focused on opening hamstrings and hips, so a deep stretch class. There will be no chaturangas during this class and just a limited number of standing postures. So we're actually going to start in a seated posture, so a comfortable seated position where you don't feel any strain in your hips, whatever that looks like for you today. So stack your shoulders over your hips and then rest your hands, palms face down or up on your knees, or if you'd like, you can take Gyan Mudra, connecting your thumb and your index finger with your palms face up and your fingers relaxed. Reach through the crown of your head and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose, fill your belly up as you breathe in, and then a big open mouth exhale, and draw your belly button back toward your spine, contracting your core as you breathe out. And then inhale through your nose, fill up, and this time keep your lips closed and exhale through your nose. Begin to activate your Ujjayi breath, a gentle constriction to the back of your throat, making your breath audible. And just become an observer of your breath as you sit in this position and settle into your space. And just notice the quality of your breath. And then begin to shape your breath. So moving out of the ragged rhythm that we often breathe in during our daily life, and start to move into long, slow, steady inhales and exhales. Three more breaths here. Complete your exhale. Open your eyes and keep your shoulders stacked over your hips and just bring your right hand to your left knee and your left hand out behind for a gentle twist. Look over your left shoulder for one full breath here. Come back towards center. Take your left hand to your right knee, your right hand out behind. Keep your shoulders stacked over your hips and twist. One full breath here. Back towards center, and then make your way to child's pose. Bring your knees wide and your toes to touch. Rest your hips on your heels, walk your hands forward, and take 3 breaths, resting your forehead on the floor. That sound is a howler monkey. Complete your exhale. Keep your hips in child's pose and walk your hands to the right. One breath here. Walk your hands to the left. One breath here. Walk your hands to center. Stretch back. Press up to tabletop. Just going to continue to warm up the spine. So 3 cat-cows. Inhale, drop your belly, lift the crown of your head. Exhale, round your spine.
2 more.
Round into cat and then return to tabletop. And tuck your toes under, hips high, downward facing dog. Start pedaling out your feet. Downward facing dog is a hamstring stretch. So it's okay if your knees are bent. You want your spine nice and long. As you start warming up into the hamstrings, you can begin to straighten the legs, but they don't have to be straight. Focus on the length in your spine. Last breath in downward facing dog, in and out through your nose. Lift your right leg high and open your hip. So stretching through the front of the hip flexor and your quadricep, lifting your knee higher, releasing your toes toward the floor. Then square your hips, straighten your leg, and step through to low lunge. Release your back knee down onto the floor. Now we're going to stretch the left hip flexor in crescent moon pose. So you can keep your hands on the floor for support, toes tucked under or toes flat, or you can lift your arms up overhead. So this is a pretty big hip opener. We are sinking down into the hips, but we're active in the legs. So squeeze your inner thighs together, even though they're not touching, and stay active. You're using your muscles here as you stretch. Release your hands down onto the floor. Heel toe your right foot off to the outer edge of your mat. We're going to come into lizard pose. Bring your forearms down onto the floor. It's okay if you're still upright or if you're on a block. This is just an option to come down onto your forearms. Extend the crown of your head forward. And first, draw your left knee in toward your left shoulder. So stay really active here in your inner thigh. So you should feel your muscles working, getting warm. And now, release your right knee toward the right. So bring your right toes off to an angle, and then option here to roll onto the outer edge of your right foot. So just an opening here. Stretch, breathe. And of course, you can find movement if you'd like. Howler monkey. Come back up onto your hands. Heel toe your foot back to center. We're going to take half splits pose. You have 2 options. You can bring your left hip over your left knee, straighten through your right leg, work towards straight, and stay here. Or you can sit your left hip on your left heel, right leg working towards straight, and you can fold from here. So either option is fine. Just want to feel the stretch in your right hamstring. And again, it's okay if your knee is really bent in either variation, just working it gently in the direction of straight. Come back to low lunge from whatever variation of half splits that you're in, and step back to high plank. Just a little bit of core work today, so just hold high plank. Draw your belly button back toward your spine. Keep your head in line with the spine, so your gaze is at the floor out in front of your hands. Modification for high plank is knees on the floor. So if you need to make take this modification, you can always rest your knees and then maybe come back to high plank. Or if you have any trouble in your wrists, you can always modify by bringing your knees to the floor, walking your hands slightly forward. And then wherever you are, you're going to come to upward facing dog. So just take the tops of your feet flat to the floor, rest your hips down, and reach through the crown of your head. So this is another great, it's a front line opener. We're opening through our hip flexors, the fronts of our hips, and our quads as we release our hips toward the floor and stay active in our legs. So in upward facing dog, our knees are actually lifted off the floor, so you should feel your quadriceps, the fronts of your legs, tightly engaged to hold the posture. And make sure that your neck is long, so no throwing the head back, okay? Just reaching up through the crown of the head, and then back to down dog. Lift your left leg high, open your hip, bend your leg, lift your knee higher toward the ceiling, and just release your foot toward the floor. Straighten your legs, square off your hips, and then step your left foot between your hands. Low lunge. Release your right knee down onto the floor. Toes can stay tucked, or you can bring your foot flat. Hands can stay on the floor, or you can bring them up. Another variation I didn't tell you on the other side, but you can place your hands on your knee if you'd like. Just really bringing our attention and our awareness to the stretch that's happening here in the front of the right hip and the quadricep. And once again, we're sinking into the hips to open them up, but we're staying active in the legs. Okay, so if you're hyper flexible or you're really mobile, your hips are really open, try to avoid just hanging out if you can see the difference, and then stay active and engaged. And release your hands down onto the floor. Half splits on this side. You can take the same variation or you can take a different variation. So either right hip over your right knee, straightening through your left leg, or right hip towards your heel, sitting down on your heel, and forward folding from here. Either option is great. Stay active in your leg and hinge forward from your hips. And again, if the knee is bent, that's great, that's fine, no worries. The knee is bent here, just slowly and gently working in the direction of straight, okay, just to stretch your hamstring. Come forward from wherever you are back to low lunge. And then heel toe, monkeys must be close. Your left foot to the left. Come down onto your knee. Lizard pose on this side. So first we're going to be in a really active variation. So again, hands on the floor or forearms. Depends on your flexibility on this side. And actively draw your left knee toward your left shoulder. So feel your leg really working to hug in and squeeze. And now bring your left toes out to an angle, and then you can just draw your left knee to the left. If it's okay on your ankle, keep your toes in line with your heel. You can roll to the outer edge of the left foot. But again, keep this alignment so you're not doing anything funky with your foot, your ankle. And then just let that knee kind of fall open. Just a different variation on the stretch. You can find movement here if it feels good in your body. Come back up onto your hands. Roll back onto the sole of your foot. And this time we're going to bring our right foot to the outside of our right hand, coming into Malasana, garland pose. So it's okay if your heels aren't touching the floor, but if it's uncomfortable and you want some support, your heels aren't touching the floor, you can always just make a little shelf with your yoga mat. Okay, that's an option. Connect your elbows to your knees if they're not already, and bring your hands to your heart. So with the elbows to the knees and the hands to the heart, it can help us, first of all, by gently pressing the knees open, just increase the stretch. So you can just stay really active, opening your knees, sinking your hips down, and then pressing your hands to your heart, really focusing on the length in the spine. So as you press elbows to knees, hands to heart, reach through the crown of your head. So try to avoid, in Malasana, being hunched or rounded like so. Very, very deep hip stretch, so we want to hold it here. Breathing deeply in and out through your nose. Check in with the quality of your breath. So with Ujjayi breath, you can hear your breath. And just listening to where it gets caught or uneven or unsteady, and then try and smooth it out. So this pranayama is a practice, so we're working in the direction of long, slow, and steady inhales and exhales. Last breath. This is a very deep compression in our hips, so we're going to stretch out the fronts again. Going to come back to high plank. So plant your hands. Step back, hold high plank. This is our only core work during class, so really focus on engaging your core to keep your body in one straight line. All right, and let's stretch out the fronts of the hips again. So tuck your toes and then release your hips toward the floor. And this time we're going to come into high cobra. So you can just release your thighs onto the floor. The legs are not lifted like they were in upward facing dog. Work toward getting your wrists underneath your shoulders. And then roll your shoulders away from your ears. Be mindful again about the back of your neck. So not throwing the head back. Staying lifted. And then press back to child's pose. And then just observe the difference in this child's pose as opposed to your first child's pose. Hopefully you're sinking a little bit further back and down with more ease now that we're warmed up. And press back to downward facing dog. Lift your right leg straight up for three-legged dog, and then bring your right foot through between your hands, low lunge. Step onto your right foot for standing splits. So lift your left leg off the floor. Work toward keeping your hips level. So standing splits is not an open hip pose, it's a closed hip pose, and you're stretching your right hamstring. It's okay if your leg is bent, okay, just working in the direction of straight. Stretching your right hamstring and working your left hamstring to lift your leg higher. So strengthening and stretching at the same time. And if you want to play with your balance, we're not going to be doing a lot of balancing poses today in class. You can take your hands off the floor and wrap them around your right ankle. Step your right foot all the way back to the back of your mat for low lunge. And then bring your right foot, heel toe it to the left side of your mat. Bring your right knee towards your right wrist for half pigeon pose. Lengthen through your spine. Extend your left leg long. And then walk your hands forward and rest your forehead down on your hands or your mat. Feel any discomfort in your knee, you can always bring your foot further in, or you can prop your hip up on a block or a pillow. If you feel very open in your hips and you want a deeper stretch, you can walk your shin more parallel to the front of your mat. Just hold here for 3 more breaths. Come back to downward facing dog and pedal out your feet. Lift your left leg straight out behind you. Bring your knee toward your nose and step your left foot between your hands. Take all of your weight onto your left foot. Lift your right leg off the floor for standing splits pose. Squared hips. So your toes are going to point down. So check back at your toes, they're pointing down. And again, left leg bent or straight. Right leg, so stretching your left hamstring, right hamstring working to lift your right leg. Release any tension in your neck. So your gaze should be at the back of your mat, not down at your toes.
your neck is long. If you want to play with your balance today, take your hands and wrap them around your left ankle. Step back to low lunge. Take your left foot, heel toe it towards your right hand. Bring your left knee and release it toward your left hand. Make any adjustments on this side. So again, you can bring your heel further back. If you have any knee discomfort, you can place a block or a blanket or some sort of prop underneath your left hip, and you can sit on it to keep your hips more upright. If you feel really, really open on this side, you can heel toe your foot so your shin comes more parallel with the front of your mat. So find a place that works for you where you're feeling a stretch but no pain. So make any adjustments to avoid any pain that you're having in your body. It should not be painful. It should feel like an intense stretch though. Press back to down dog and pedal out your feet. Walk your hands toward, or your feet toward your hands. And bend your legs, rest your torso on your thighs. Now take your hands to the backs of your heels, cup them, and keeping your torso sandwiched on your legs, start to straighten your legs, which may look like barely anything, okay? So it's okay to just stay here, but we're actually working to lengthen the hamstrings. And we're gonna do this seated in just a moment. Release the grip on your heels and just come into a squat and come to seated. Okay, similar, we're gonna just take the peace fingers, wrap your peace fingers around your big toes, legs are bent, torso is sandwiched on your thighs, and then just start to walk your feet forward. So you can just come to the place where you feel a stretch in your hamstring and stop there, hold it and breathe.
And then maybe you walk your foot a little bit further forward as your hamstrings continue to open up. If you have this nice tight grip on your toes, try to avoid hunching and crunching in your shoulders. Okay, so that's not the purpose here. We want to draw the shoulders away from the ears and stay long through the spine. And our neck, once again, is open. Release the grip from your toes. Make your way back up to a seat and lower down onto your back. Hug your knees into your chest. Last hip opener of our class, happy baby. Separate your knees and your feet and then hold on to either the backs of your thighs, the backs of your calves, ankles, or outer or inner edges of your feet. Keep your low back pressed onto your mat and then draw your knees and your thighs closer to the floor. You can rock side to side if you'd like to massage your spine and your low back. But again, we want to keep drawing our tailbone down. So in Happy Baby, we don't want to be curled up in a ball. We want to be long in our spine. Hug your knees back into your chest. And release your legs long on your mat. Arms by your side. Palms face up. Feet fall open. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it go through your mouth. You can come back to the natural rhythm of your breath, releasing your pranayama practice, and coming into a state of relaxation and rest in Shavasana. Please stay in Shavasana for at least another 5 minutes if you have time, and if you have more time than that, continue to rest in Shavasana for as long as you can. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Today, as you go forward, may you have peace in your thoughts and your words and your heart, from my heart to yours. Namaste.